Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Professor West. So far we have been working on creating the screens for the old Space Invaders game, or a similar type game, using the MIT App Inventor. And what we have right now is a start screen, a game screen, and then an end screen. And we're going to go into the code and set these up now. If you haven't already done that, please check out that video first, otherwise you'll be lost in this part. So let's go to the blocks and get it going. The first thing we need to do is set it up so when somebody clicks on the start screen button, it brings up the game screen. So let's click on the button and let's come over to the click event. The click event is what's associated with the button. Whenever you click on the button, it triggers this event. So when somebody clicks on that button on the start screen, it's going to come to this, which is going to do two things. It's going to hide the start screen, and it's going to make the game screen visible. So let's do that real quick. Let's click on the start screen, come down to set start screen visible to, and plug it in. And we're going to scroll up here to the logic and do a false. So we're going to set it to false. And then we're going to come over to our game screen. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to come down to we want the visible. Remember, these are all in alphabetical order by the second column. So visible is going to be down towards the bottom. And here we go, set game screen visible. And I'm going to duplicate this by right-clicking on it and plug it in. And then I'm going to click the drop-down arrow and select true. So when somebody clicks on that button, it's going to make my start screen visible false, which makes it invisible. And it's going to make my game screen visible true, which makes it visible. So that's all we've done so far. We've swapped the screens. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set it up so that our spaceship can be dragged around the screen. And I want to be able to click on my spaceship and drag it over here, and then when I release it, it's going to shoot. Or if I just click on it, it'll shoot. That's the whole point. So let's come over to our spaceship. We called it Rocket Ship, IMG Rocket Ship, and we're going to get a dragged event. That's it in the golden events up here. The first one is collided with, the second one is dragged. We want the one that says dragged right now. And all we're going to do with that is we're going to tell it that the rocket ship, let's go back to our rocket ship, the rocket ship's X value, and I'll explain that in 1 second. Let's pull it on the screen. That's the one we want, the one that says image rocket ship X, so all the way down. And the X value is how far it is from the left side of the screen. The Y value is how far it is from the top. So right now, my X is 111 and my Y is 273. So what I'm telling it is that as I drag it, that moving left to right, it's going to change, but I'm not changing the Y value. So it'll stay the same distance from the bottom, but it'll let me drag it back and forth like this. So that's what I'm telling it right now. I'm going to change my rocket ship's X value to be whatever the current X is. And the current X is where I stop dragging it, or where I take my finger off the screen. The dragged event keeps track of all these different variables, and we want the one that says current X. And we're going to use the get, and we're just going to plug it right in. So when I drag my finger or my mouse across the screen, wherever I stop, that's going to be the current X, and it's going to tell the rocket ships to have that be their current X. So the rocket ship will be wherever my finger stops dragging. The next thing I want to do is I want to go in to my screen and I want to set up a couple things. I want my lasers to be invisible. So I want that to happen as soon as the screen initializes. So I'm going to come over to my screen. I clicked on it already, and I'm going to come down to when screen 1 initializes. Let's just drag that right on there. And then I'm going to come down for all 3 of my lasers, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to come down to visible. Remember, it's alphabetical order. The greens are at the bottom. And I'm going to set the visible to false. So I'm just going to duplicate this and plug it in. And I want to do that for all 3 of my lasers because I have 3 on there and I want them all 3 to be invisible. So I'm just going to right click on this one and duplicate it. I'm going to do the same thing again. And I'm going to click this little drop down and change that to laser 2 and this one to laser 3. So when my screen initializes, all 3 of their visibles will be false, which means they will all be invisible. Okay. Now that I've set up what happens when my rocket ship gets dragged, I want to set up what happens when it gets touched. And touching is when you tap on it or click on it or something like that. So let's come down to the image rocket ship and come all the way up, and the very last golden one says dot touched. Don't use the touched up or touched down, use the touched. And that just means that you've touched it. So you've clicked on it or you've tapped on it. When that happens, I want 2 things to happen. First, I want my laser to come right to the middle of the screen and become visible and start moving upwards. So I don't want it to look like it's coming from over here or out here somewhere. I want it to look like it's coming straight from the middle of my ship. So to do that, I have to understand, and I want you to understand this as well, that the X value goes from the edge of the screen to the very left of the picture. So right here is the X value. If I want it to go to the center, I have to also get the width and divide that by 2 and then add that to my X. So I have to tell it to get the X, and I have to tell it to get the width divided by 2 and add them together so that my bullet will look like it's coming from the center of this ship. So that's what we have to do now with our dot touched. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tell my laser to move over there. So let's go with laser 1 for now. We'll update this in a minute. For now, I'm only going to worry about 1 laser. So laser 1, and I'm going to tell it to move 2. And I'm going to tell it exactly like I just told you. I'm going to come into the math, and I'm going to get a procedure. I'm going to get a addition. And I'm going to move it over here so I can use it. And I'm going to come back into math, and I'm going to get a divisible, a dividing one. Because I'm going to use them both. So I'm going to come over to my rocket sprite, and I'm going to get one that says width, W-I-D-T-H. So I'm going to get the one that tells it how wide my rocket ship is. And I'm going to put that in this first spot in the divisible one, in the dividing one. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to get a number out of the math, just a blank number, the very top one. And I'm going to click in here and I'm going to change that to a 2. So remember when we set our spaceship up and we told it the width was 40 pixels. So its width is 40 pixels divided by 2 is 20. That'll get me the very center of the ship. So I need to tell it my rocket's X value. Remember, that's the very top left, or very left since it's square. My rocket's top left value is its X. Oops, I didn't want that one though. Let me delete this. I wanted the other one. I want the one that just asks it what it is. The ones that say set tell it what it is, and the ones that don't ask it what it is. I want it to ask what the width of my ship is, and I'm going to add that to whatever. Or I'm asking where the X is, and I'm going to add that to whatever the width is of my ship divided by 2. So at this point, my width is, or my X is 127. So this corner is 127 at this point. And my width is going to be 20, which means that the center is going to be 147. I can't just tell it 147 because when I move it, all of that changes. And I want this to come, no matter where it's at, I want it to come up from the center. I'm going to plug this into the X for my laser, because this is going to tell my laser where to be. And then I'm also going to get my rocket's Y value. Remember, the Y is how high it is. And I'm going to need a math for this one too. And for this one, I just need a subtraction. So I'm going to plug this in, and I'm just going to copy this number because I'm going to use something different in a second. But I'm going to put it in there. And let me tell you how we're going to do this. The rocket's Y value is the high point. This corner, the high point. So that's 273. If I subtract like 20 from it, then that's going to be a little lower than this, just barely. So it'd be 253. I can type it in. So that's where my laser is going to start and then shoot straight up. So it's going to appear here and shoot straight up. And that way I can do that. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to change this to 20. Because it wouldn't make any sense if the laser started, an inch above the ship. That wouldn't make any sense at all. Now I'm going to tell that sprite to be visible. So I'm going to come get my laser 1, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to plug it in here, and I'm going to change the visible to true, because I want that laser to be visible. Like I said, we'll worry about lasers 2 and 3 in just a minute. Let's just get one of them for now. I'm also going to set my laser speed. Now, I can go into the laser and go down and find the speed, or I can copy this and duplicate it and come to this drop down, and I have all the same options here. I want the speed, and it just took that true right off for me because I want a number. And I'm going to set my speed to be about 5. So I'm just going to grab a number box here, and I'm going to change that to 5. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it the heading, what direction I want it to go. It's down here at the bottom. I want it to go straight up. So I'm going to copy this one more time and duplicate it. And I'm going to change this one to heading. And in this, we use numbers to represent the heading. 0 goes directly to the right. 180 goes directly to the left. 90 goes straight up. And minus 90 goes straight down. That's a whole nother story. So now, let me pause this and pull up my emulator so I can show you. Okay, so I've got my emulator up. Let's hope it keeps working. They've been having trouble today. And when you click the start button, now I should be able to move my ship and shoot my lasers. Notice two things. When I tap it, if I just tap it, my laser restarts because I told it to shoot that laser, start it here, as soon as I tap it. So it never even gets up to the top. Notice also that my laser turned sideways. I don't know why they do that sometimes on here, but we're just going to have to go in and tell it not to rotate. And last but not least, notice that when it got up to the top, it went right through that ship because we haven't told it what to do when it hits it. And then when it got to the wall, it stopped because we haven't told it what to do for that either. So we're going to have to fix all 4 of those things. And a couple of them are really easy. So I'm just going to come over here into my click event when my screen starts, when I click that first button, and I'm going to come to my laser, and I'm going to come down to the green section, and I'm going to look for rotate. And I'm going to plug that in. Set laser1.rotates, and I'm going to tell it false. So now, when I shoot, oh, I didn't go back. Let me make a change so it'll reset. I'm going to call that laser L for 1 second. And that'll reset my emulator. Because I told it when you click on the button that it makes it where you can't turn it. And now notice my laser stays straight up and down. I still have to worry about when I click it when it's already moving, and I have to worry about how it doesn't do anything up here. But this is a good start. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set it up so that it knows what to do when it collides with the spaceship. So I'm going to come over to my laser sprite. That's my laser. And I'm going to scroll all the way up, and I'm going to tell it collided with. So when my laser 1 collides with something, this is what's going to happen. And I'm going to tell it that the laser becomes invisible. So laser 1.visible false. I'm just going to copy that one and put it right in here. Because obviously when it hits the ship, I don't want it to keep going through it. I want it to stop. And then I'm also going to set my score label. And remember, the score label is down here right now in the horizontal arrangement, and it has a 0 at the bottom. So I'm going to tell it to go get that text, my score label. I'm going to tell it to set the new score label value to B, and then I'm going to tell it to get the score from the same place, label score.text. So I told it I got the set one, and now I'm getting the other one. This one's going to ask what the current score is. I need to get a math with an addition, and I'm going to add that, and then I'm also going to get a math with a number, and I'm going to add 1. And let me walk you through this real quick. So what we just did was we told it to go get the score that's in the text, or get the text that's in the label score, which is 0, and add 1 to it, and set that to be the new score. The next time one of my bullets hits, then it'll already be 1, so it would add 1 to it, and it'll be 2, and that'll be what shows up, and so forth. That's all we've told it to do here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to tell it what happens, because right now, let's see if we can get this going. Right now, when I hit, it should change my score and make my laser invisible. So my laser didn't hit the wall. But what happens when it does? Right now, if my laser comes up and hits the wall, it just sits there. I haven't told it what to have happen. So let's do that. Let's go back into the laser, and let's get the one that says dot edge reached. It's the third golden one here. When the edge gets reached, I just want my laser to be invisible. So I'm just going to duplicate this and plug it right in. So now, when my laser gets to any edge, which it can only really hit this edge, it's just going to disappear. And it can't go to any of the sides or the bottom edge, so it can just go up and disappear. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to get my guy moving. Because, I mean, that would be a really easy game if we just sit here and shoot him over and over. That wouldn't be very much fun. We want him to start moving around. So for now, let's go into Designer, and let's come down to... I'm thinking it's under Media. No, it's not under Media. Maybe Sensors? Yep, Sensors. There we go. In the Sensors, let's grab a clock. A clock has basically two things. It has whether or not it's enabled and how often it's enabled. 1,000 is what it says right here. That's 1,000 milliseconds. There's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So I'm telling it literally to do something every 1 second. And that's what we're going to set up next. And what do I want it to do? Well, I want my bad guy to move. So I'm going to come down to the clock, and it's only got one golden item up here. It says timer. And every time that timer triggers, so every 1,000 milliseconds or every 1 second, it's going to do something. And what I want it to do, I want it to move my ship. So I'm going to come up to my image sprite for my Did I not rename that? Oh, that'd be bad. Let's do that. Let me go to my arrangement, because if I didn't rename it, that would be weird. Wouldn't technically affect anything? Yep, there it is. Let's rename that. So I'm going to call it IMG, I don't know, bad guy. or IMG saucer or something like that, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to go back into the blocks now, and I'm going to come over here to my IMG bad guy, and I'm going to get the move to, because I want to make it move. And where I want it to move, I want it to stay up by the top of the screen. So right now, it's at Y -5. Yeah. I'm going to change that to Y0, so it's even with the top. And I'm just going to have it move along the X. I don't want it to move along the Y. So for now, I'm just going to put a number for the Y, and that number is going to be 0. Because I want it to stay right at the top. For the X, I'm going to come to the math. I'm going to scroll all the way up, and then I'm going to get this first really long one where it says random integer from 1 to 100. And I'm just going to get that and plug it in. And let's come back and look. Right now, my spaceship can go all the way to the right over here. And that's about 267. That's a little off, so I'm going to change that to about probably 260. So in my calculation here where it says random integer from 1 to, I'm just going to change that to 260. So it can go all the way from the left edge to the right edge. And it's going to do that every 1 second. So let me pause and get the emulator running again. Okay, as you can see, our spaceship is now randomly bouncing around the screen. And for some reason my lasers are turned again. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to add one into the text here, or into the touched, to tell it that it can't do that. So I'm going to tell it rotates, because maybe I didn't hit the button right or something. And I'm going to tell it rotates is false. So now it shouldn't be able to do that no matter what. Sometimes you have to watch where you put things. Okay. So I now have my spaceship bouncing around the screen. So let's go ahead and let's work on the reset button here. If I hit the reset button, there's really only a few things that need to happen. I'm going to reset the score on this one. So let's go ahead and get the reset button. And the reset button uses a click. So let's get a click for it. And it's going to reset the label score. So I'm going to come down to the text for the label score. And I'm just going to tell it that the text is 0. So when I click the reset button now, my score should go back to 0. There you go. So the last thing I need to do is fix a couple things. As soon as my laser hits my ship, the ship should move. So I'm going to come up to my laser 1 collided with, because remember, we're going to add more shots. So even though it takes a long time for this one to get up here, and it would automatically have been moved anyway, later, maybe we'll be shooting faster, but we'll definitely have more shots coming. So I don't want to be able to shoot it 3 times before it moves in that second. So I want to tell it as soon as a laser hits it to move. So I'm coming here to my laser sprite, my laser 1 collided with, and I'm just going to tell it to move. So my bad spaceship sprite, my bad guy sprite, .x, my image bad guy .x. I'm going to plug that in, and what I want it to do, I want it to be any number from 1 to 260. Oops, I don't want to take it, I wanted to copy it. So now, as soon as my bullet hits it, it'll move. And congratulations, everybody. We now have an actual functioning game. It'll be a little funner if my bullets went a little faster. I'm going to change that right now. Maybe for now, I'm going to make it move at 10. So that at least gives me a shot at getting it. And come back for the next segment. We're going to update this. We're going to make it where you can fire more shots. We're going to make it where when you hit the button, it doesn't reset the laser. And we're going to do some other fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. All right, bye.